these pillars dates back 11,600 years. It appears to be purposely buried at the same time of the Younger Dryas climate catastrophe. This is fascinating.
In southeastern Turkey lies Göbekli Tepe, a monument close to 12,000 years old, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids. At a distance, the site might seem to be any everyday archaeological dig. But as you draw closer, the gigantic stone pillars show something remarkable: carving of animals, cosmic shapes, and human figures that have puzzled experts for decades. Why are they there? What do they represent? These questions have hung around for centuries because Göbekli Tepe is not only an ancient structure, it is a mystery. Even more astounding is the assumption that these carvings contain a secret message, one which has defied deciphering for thousands of years. Now, with the assistance of quantum AI, a revolutionary tool programmed to crack symbolic patterns traversing cultures and time, we are nearer than ever before to unlocking the life-changing significance written within this ancient stone. What do these carvings say? Who created them? Why did they make them? And most significantly, what warnings could they possibly have for us today? Let's discover. Before diving into what artificial intelligence has uncovered about Göbekli Tepe, it's important to understand its mystery and how it came to be. Perched on a hilltop in southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe stands as an archaeological breakthrough that has permanently altered our understanding of early human history. Radiocarbon dating puts its construction at 9,600 to 8,200 BCE, thousands of years before Stonehenge and the Great Pyramid of Giza. Uncovered first in the 1990s by German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt and his crew, the excavation soon proved groundbreaking. What they discovered challenged all we believed about prehistoric communities. The excavation uncovered gigantic circular enclosures bounded by giant T-shaped limestone pillars, each weighing up to 20 tons. The staggering aspect? Hunter-gatherers built these megaliths, before they invented pottery, agriculture, or even writing. It just couldn't have worked. How could hunter-gatherers with no fancy tools or fixed settlements manage such a massive project? Whatever the reason, the evidence left no doubt that these buildings involved incredible cooperation, planning, and social organization far beyond what we thought of the period. In contrast to settlements in which archaeologists usually discover houses, hearths, food storage, or agricultural leftovers, Göbekli Tepe showed none of these. Instead, its remnants were huge open-air enclosures, animal sculptures, and ceremonial relics. This lack of home life strongly indicates the site was not a village, but rather some kind of sacred ritual grounds, most likely constructed for ritual or ceremonial use. The most stunning part of the complex are the pillars, which are covered with rich carvings depicting scorpions, vultures, foxes, snakes, wild boars, and abstract shapes. These depictions amazed archaeologists, who argued their meaning for decades. Were they representations of mythological narratives? Seasonal calendars? Totemic indicators? Or just pieces of art? Since there was no written language at that time, the real meanings were unknown. One of the most vivid examples is the vulture stone, on which a vulture stands over a headless human corpse. Scholars long guessed this was more than decorative, presumably a symbolic message, but no one was able to crack its meaning. For decades, the carvings sat like a mystery in stone. But now, all this has changed. With the emergence of sophisticated artificial intelligence, and now the revolutionary technology of quantum AI, we now have a tool capable of addressing this ancient riddle head-on. Unlike the AI of old, quantum AI is able to process unimaginably large amounts of information simultaneously, unearthing patterns hidden within complexity. By taking microscopic images of the carvings, tracing out their spatial relationships, and cross-checking them against enormous cultural and astronomical databases, the AI found something remarkable: the carvings weren't random. They seemed to be following a conscious sequence, perhaps the earliest example of symbolic writing that humanity has discovered. As analyzed by quantum AI, every symbol holds significance. Death is represented by the scorpion, celestial return by the vulture, divine light by the sun disk, and transformation, possibly even death and rebirth into another plane, by the headless man. When one considers them collectively, they present a story of death, resurrection, and cosmic cycles. Even more strikingly, the AI discovered alignments of some pillars with celestial pointers, such as constellations aligned at sunrise more than 12,000 years ago. This indicates that Göbekli Tepe's construction crew weren't just artists, but also accomplished astronomers familiar with the precession of the equinoxes, the gradual tilt of Earth's axis that cycles nearly 26,000 years before repeating. And here's the most disturbing find: quantum AI determined that the carvings could very well encode a warning related to this cosmic cycle, perhaps alluding to doomsday-like events from the distant past of humanity. If this be so, everything is changed. It implies that early hunter-gatherers were not mere, primitive folk, but guardians of deep knowledge, knowledge which may have descended from an even more ancient, vanished civilization. Göbekli Tepe may well be humanity's first attempt to leave behind necessary wisdom before it was lost forever. If quantum AI's interpretation holds true, Göbekli Tepe is not merely an ancient ceremonial site, it is a cosmic library, carved into stone to carry messages across millennia. This revelation overturns the traditional narrative of human progress, which assumes that science, astronomy, and symbolic writing only emerged after the development of agriculture and urban life. But it proposes something much more astonishing, that the early Neolithic folk might have inherited remnants of knowledge from an even older civilization. Could it be that Göbekli Tepe's builders were survivors of a forgotten world, guardians of wisdom handed down from a people who witnessed catastrophe and sought to preserve their understanding of the cosmos? If so, their work was not simply religious or artistic expression, it was a desperate attempt to communicate vital truths before they vanished forever. Quantum AI's findings point to an encoded warning within the carvings. The symbolic cycle of death, rebirth, and cosmic cycles may not only be a spiritual narrative, it might represent an awareness of astronomical phenomena that determine the destiny of civilizations. The alignments with the precession of the equinoxes suggest cycles of destruction and rebirth linked with celestial mechanics and imply that the inhabitants of Göbekli Tepe measured time on a scale extending tens of thousands of years. What might they have been trying to warn us of? Gigantic climate changes? Astronomical occurrences? Earth-shattering natural disasters? Though the nature of the message itself is unknown, the fact that hunter-gatherers more than 12 millennia ago had knowledge of such cosmic patterns is nothing less than mind-boggling. It makes one consider that humankind's memory is considerably longer, and richer, than mainstream history allows. Another profound implication of the carvings is their focus on transformation, life, death, and ascent into another realm. Were these symbols merely spiritual metaphors, or did they point to a literal understanding of the soul's journey after death? The headless human beneath the vulture, as interpreted by quantum AI, might symbolize the separation of the spirit from the body, while the sun disk above suggests enlightenment or union with a higher power. If this is correct, Göbekli Tepe may have been a world between worlds, a kind of holy place where individuals would come not just to worship their deities but to safeguard cosmic knowledge regarding the nature of existence itself. The significance goes beyond archaeology and history, it gets at the very core of how we understand human civilization. For centuries, academics thought that agriculture preceded settlements, then religion, and finally monumental architecture. But Göbekli Tepe reverses this sequence on its head. Monumental architecture and ritual exist here well before farming, pottery, or cities. This implies that spirituality and common systems of belief might have been the real building blocks of civilization, that collective meaning, rather than mere material survival, was what initially drew people together to create something more than themselves. And if that meaning was attached to a lost corpus of astronomical information, then our forebears were perhaps far more advanced, and far more in touch with the universe, than we ever dared think. Göbekli Tepe today is not just the oldest known temple in the world, but a mystery etched in stone. It confronts us with uncomfortable questions. Was there a lost civilization prior to the beginning of history? Did they leave clues behind in symbols and stars? And if they did, are we ready to listen and obey? Thanks to quantum AI, the shroud is gradually being lifted. Fragment by fragment, symbol by symbol, Göbekli Tepe's carvings are once again being heard after 12 millennia of silence. And what they could be saying might recast the course of humankind's very destiny. The most fascinating thing about this analysis is that the spatial distances between the pillars seem to encode measurements associated with quantum oscillation patterns, something that no hunter-gatherer culture is thought to have known. If true, this would mean the preservation of knowledge from an advanced civilization prior to the known emergence of civilization. Still on the Vulture Stone, formerly designated Pillar 43, there's also a relief that appears almost whimsical at first sight, 3 diminutive, rectangular blocks with half-moon handles, tidily arranged like designer handbags for sale. Not surprisingly, it made headline news. Archaeologists have listed them with no fuss, presenting humble theories. Maybe they are offering carrying baskets, seed containers, or symbolic representations of temple rooftops. In the orthodox perspective, they are merely functional or symbolic things, duplicated for symmetry. But outside scholarship, their significance has become one of the most intriguing mysteries of Göbekli Tepe. These handbag forms do not occur solely in this sanctuary that is 12,000 years old. They are found, nearly in the same way, in the reliefs of ancient Mesopotamia, where gods such as Enki and Shamash are shown holding a little, rectangular satchel with a curved strap. Travel across the oceans in imagination, and lo, you see them reappear in the Olmec and Maya art, borne by otherworldly, sometimes feathered creatures. And now the question is, can a motif pop up in cultures that are apart both by vast oceans and by thousands of years? The traditional response is coincidence. Humans all over the world make containers, and it's natural that they would sometimes resemble one another. But the accuracy of the resemblance, the proportion of the rectangle to its handle, and the consistent manner in which it is drawn have prompted others to speculate a common, ancient origin. To alternative historians such as Graham Hancock, these are not bags or baskets but a symbolic language, shorthand for something ethereal, something not born in leather or reed, but in the mind. They may signify the container of knowledge, the transportable wisdom of the culture bringers who, in many indigenous myths, appeared following cataclysmic floods to re-establish civilization. That they are 3 is perhaps more than aesthetic flourish. They might represent the 3 zones of ancient cosmology, heaven above, earth in the middle, and underworld below. Others interpret them as milestones of astronomical cycles, 3 recurring ages in the grand precessional clock, or 3 stars of Orion's belt, appearing to line up with other landmarks at Göbekli Tepe. If Göbekli Tepe's architects left a message for the future, as our AI model speculates, the handbags could have meant to their forebears that knowledge is transferable, portable, and vital for survival. In the final terrible disaster, they interred that knowledge, as well as the site itself, encasing their warnings within stone. Though we cannot actually see inside, the fact that this image is repeated through continents and millennia implies that whatever is inside, it was thought to be important. And then there's the intentional burial of Göbekli Tepe, which adds to the intrigue. The site was buried in soil about 8000 BCE, intentionally, not by erosion. This may have been a preservation action, intended to protect the knowledge inscribed upon the pillars for a far-off future generation. And lo and behold, we may well be the first in thousands of years to have cracked this life-changing code. What's even more interesting is that the AI's findings align with a growing body of research suggesting that early human history may be more complex and more connected than previously believed.